Thank you all for joining us today for the first session of Anessa's new webinar series, Navigating Challenges in the Waste to Energy Space. And a good morning or good afternoon or good evening to you, depending on where you're located. My name is Robert DiDiodato. I'm the VP of Business Development here at Anessa, and it's my pleasure to do the moderation of today's webinar. So, generally speaking, in the webinar series that we'll have in the coming weeks and months, we'll be exploring how industry professionals navigate the unique challenges of doing business in biogas, in RNG, green energy, and generally in the waste to energy sector. And the intent is to focus on technology, innovation, creative strategies, and solutions to overcome common barriers. So the idea is to, with the flow of these sessions, is to have a lunch and learn type of approach. So for today's session, we'll spend a few minutes introducing our panelists, approximately 30-35 minutes for discussion, answering questions. We'll leave some time at the end for any questions that you may have. In terms of some ground rules, we'll be recording today's session, making the link available to everybody, and you can share it with your colleagues or friends. And if you look at the bottom of your panel, there's a few navigation buttons that you can use. So if you have any technology issues, for example, just please use the chat link, and we'll do our best to troubleshoot on the fly with you. And you'll notice the Q&A button as well. And if you have questions during the webinar portion or afterward with the Q&A, please use that, and we'll do our best to answer the questions that you might have. And we may also, if we don't have the answers, we'll certainly find them for you, and we can somehow build that into our responses to you. Okay, so today is the first in the series, and we're going to explore marketing and communications in the waste energy sphere. So we have a talented group of marketers representing a variety of businesses from all over the place, and it is my pleasure to introduce them. First of all, we have Missy Lee, and she on the left-hand side of my screen. I'm not sure where she is on yours. She is the marketing manager with Stratagen. Stratagen helps their clients achieve energy system transformation through a unique combination of capabilities. Missy holds a Bachelor of Science in Conservation and Resource Studies and a Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Economics and Policy from the University of California at Berkeley. With over 9 years of experience, her expertise includes business to client digital marketing, as well as brand activation and ideation. Missy, welcome, and thank you for being a panelist today. Next, we have Andronika Kirov. Where am I screen? There you go, on the right-hand side. She is the Senior Marketing and Communications Manager for BIOGEST, a full-service biomethane and biogas plant manufacturer operating worldwide. Andronika holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from the Vienna University of Economics and Business. After completing her master's degree at the University of Vienna, Andronika became head of the marketing department at BioGest and was able to develop and manage new standards for the brand. Thank you, Andronika, for participating. Welcome. Next, we have Letizia Mariani, who is a marketing and communications specialist at Biogas Renewable Energy. In 2018, Letizia earned a bachelor's degree in communication science and master's degree in marketing and communication in 2020 at IULM University in Milan. At Biogas, she creates an integrated strategy to make biogas and biomethane an accessible and concrete solution by meeting the target market's needs and positioning Biogas as a leader in the biogas market. Welcome, Letizia. Thank you for being part of the panel. And we have my colleague, Andrea Cardenas. She is the marketing manager here at Anessa. Andrea's responsibilities include the promotion of the brand and Anessa's 80 project assessment and feedstock optimization platforms. She leads our market research team, and I can attest firsthand that she has a very full plate day in, day out here at Anessa. Andrea started at Anessa while completing her Bachelor of Business Administration degree at the University of New Brunswick. She quickly worked her way up to marketing manager at the firm. Andrea proudly helped with the transition to the new Anessa brand and continually integrates innovation and marketing ideas into our way of doing business here. Thank you, Andrea, for pulling all of this together and for serving on the panel. And last but not least, we have David MacCoubrey. He is the president of Surf Marketing and Design. David is a 20-year marketing veteran with extensive experience offering marketing solutions to small to medium businesses. He graduated from the New Brunswick Community College with digital communications in 2001. He went on to earn a bachelor's degree in media studies from the University of New Brunswick. And in 2014, with a focus of marketing, design, and psychology. Surf Marketing was founded in 2010 and has served several sectors, including R&G, technology, retail, tourism, grassroots, environmental industries, and much more. And thank you, David, for joining us today. Okay, so let's jump in. So we have roughly 5 minutes per question. And Missy, we're going to kick things off with you. So marketers in R&G often state that the industry is marketed using traditional methods. Do you account for this in your strategy? And if so, how?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Robert, for the warm introduction. So with traditional marketing, I would say one of the disadvantages of traditional marketing is that it accounts for a large portion of the budget for, if we're talking about events and broadcasting. So this is a really good question because right now we're planning for budgets for 2023. So I would say that for me as a digital marketing specialist or expert, I would place first my priorities on what goals I want to achieve for digital marketing. So what campaigns that I want to focus on for next year, and then also try to bake that into the overall budget for traditional and digital marketing. So if I want to do a video campaign, for example, I'm going to budget that into my 2023, taking into account that maybe I want to go to an event like IFAT for next year, just because I know that IFAT can be really expensive, for example. So I want to make sure that I'm prioritizing my digital needs. And that's because with digital marketing, the KPIs are a little bit more measurable. So if I want to prove that, for example, that my goals and KPIs are meeting the targets that we want to achieve, that I want to make sure that I have that in the bank. So I want to make sure that I have what I need to prove for the year after that, for example, video campaigns or off the bat, like webinars, for example, for here, that those are things that I can contribute to the sales and marketing team. So I can make sure that I can prove that we're generating leads and making sure that we're filling the pipeline as well.
Okay, thank you. Letizia, any comments?
Yeah, sure. Of course, I agree with Missy because in our job and in the R&D market, it's very difficult sometimes to measure the results of our activities, and it's always, not always, but often difficult to make the engineers and technicians understand that marketing is a value. As an added value for the technologies and the solutions. In my case, a great part of our target is the agricultural one. So in my experience for this kind of industry, digital market is not effective. Because Google, LinkedIn campaigns are not useful to collect new leads. So in this case, the traditional methods should be considered. So printed ADV, but also a great use of gadgets during the exhibition, even if it looks quite old as a tactic, but for the farmers is very important. So in my case and in Biogas, in biogas technology, I try to mix some modern tactics and the traditional ones to get all the interests and try to get all the touch points for our clients.
Okay, thank you very much. Andrea, your perspective on
I think from our Definitely. I think from our vantage points, things definitely changed due to the pandemic. So I remember the first campaign I worked at Anessa was a mail out campaign where I gave actual physical mail to Robert and Faru that they were going to drop off while they were going on one of their sales excursions in Europe. And then the pandemic hits and we need to start looking at how do we communicate in the same way in a digital manner. So I think the pandemic definitely taught us how to implement a digital strategy that still was keeping our customers engaged while keeping in mind what were those things that really worked well with more traditional methods previous to the pandemic that we wanted to bring back afterwards. And I think now it's more of a thing of we have all this digital knowledge that we want to use, and we also have these traditional methods that we haven't been able to use in the past. So going back to Missy's point, it's a point of prioritizing where do we want to play? Where do we want our budget to go a little bit more? And which ones do we want to prioritize going forward based on the kind of customers that we want to reach?
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And Andronika, I was going to kick off the next question for you, but you can comment on question number one, if you like as well. And then I'll leave you with a second question, which is communicating product features and capabilities as benefits and solutions can be challenging. In your experience, have you found it more effective to have a flexible strategy that can adjust or sustained strategy with key values and messaging?
Thank you, Robert. I would like to point something out in the first question. This will lead me then or guide me to the second question. In general, I like, to start from scratch. It was a very good first question. You always have to ask yourself, where and how do I reach my customers? Is it through traditional or online methods? We all agree that we are far away from confronting people with advertisements, whether they like it or not. So it's a mixture, as everybody said. We have to keep in mind the budget, what works best from us. And it should not be the case anymore. Let's say that technologies company advertise themselves on a fair, like in a way like buy it or leave it. This is us. We are the best. It's like, no. What is the reason behind why are you doing what you are doing? These are nowadays really the focus and the question everybody asks, why are you doing it? And what are the benefits for your customers? And this is something a company has to answer themselves. And what makes them unique from other companies? So for example, we are as well a manufacturer. So what differs, let's say, in our company than it does to our competitors? And it all starts with a business relationship. This is what people want to hear. And when you have building a relationship, then I think everything is much easier. And the answer is then yes for trade fairs, but it's a different way nowadays how you can present yourselves on fairs. And in my opinion, to achieve this, you need both. You need a long-term strategy that basically covers your mission and vision of your company, backed by your brand values. Why are you doing it? Of course, you have midterm goals, but you also need to stay flexible. Saying this, especially for my industry or as a manufacturer, staying flexible in our industry is quite essential, since legislation, feedstock, market opportunities can quickly change. The wording also might differ from time to time. There are new words, or let's say hyped words, which should include in your communication campaign. And in the end, it's all about the content marketing, which means we solve problems of our clients and communicating them simultaneously. It's not only about the technology. The technology is there. The technology is great, but why are you doing this? What is the benefit for the customers? And then communicating it simultaneously. And this is, let's say, my answer, how to communicate the product features, etc., as the benefits, and how would I include this as a strategy, long-term or flexible.
Okay, very good. Thank you. David, any comments? Can I note here on the panelists, we have a combination of tangible and intangible products that are being marketed. So,
yeah, I found since I've been, because I do consulting work with Anessa, that's how I've met them. I find that the traditional and simplicity seem to go hand in hand with the RNG clients. We have Anessa, we've tried cutting edge solutions and have had negative results. So like, for example, we had a landing page a few months ago that followed all of the industry best practices, button placement, short contact form. We had social proof, a trendy image, and more. It was researched on how it was supposed to look. The landing page was just designed as a lead capture for a Google ad that we were running, and it just wasn't getting the job done. What we did is we switched around our Google ad and pointed it towards our contact page, which was more simplistic in design than the landing page was. And it started converting immediately. And that's saying like volumes to me because, I've worked with grassroots environmentally based organizations and buy local websites. And we do have some of the related client demographics. And I found that traditional works better. This demographic likes in-person meetings, handshakes, business cards, and a personal touch. And this even carries on over into the web as well. I found the demographic like very simply designed websites, oftentimes wanting old style graphics even. No modern bells and whistles. And this even went into print design too. Like recently we tried a seed card, and that's one of those cards that when you're done, you can plant it in the ground and flowers grow. And it really didn't seem to connect with our potential clients. So, we scrapped that. So I just think RNG clients want it traditional, a business card, a brochure, easy to use website, and that's it. That's all I have to say about that one.
Okay, thank you, David. Missy, any comments? And I know you're also on I believe on the intangible side of things. Any comments on features and capabilities as benefits?
So I think I agree with David's point in that the biogas industry tends to value traditional marketing, but just like what Andrea said, that the webinars or the fact that we have to convert to a digital landscape has proved actually really effective in proving value to the C-suite team. So the C-suite team understands that they can actually get more bang for your buck, for example, if they're able to convert leads or host one-to-one meetings virtually versus spending the budget for sales, for example, like sending a sales rep over to that area to meet for a conference. We've also talked about like how we can minimize our event marketing budget because it's really hard to quantify the ROI sometimes for events, right? Which we'll talk about a little bit later. So we've talked about like how we can approach events in a different way, how we can capitalize that event's going to gather a large group of people, and maybe we can go there and send, but not necessarily attend the event, and put a large amount of budget into creating a $60,000 booth, for example. So I think the other question, though, that you were mentioning was about technical topics. So when I'm trying to do a campaign on a technical topic, I tend to think of it in goals. So for like Q1, for example, I want to work on a case study. And then Q2, I'm going to work on a video campaign and work with a client interview, for example. And then by Q3, I might do the finale, for example, where I'm going to do the product launch at the event. And now I have the case study and I have the client video to back up and put that on the booth. So I agree with a lot of the talking points everyone's saying about mixing digital and traditional marketing. They definitely go hand in hand altogether. It really is, though, about like a balance of it in terms of the budget. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Letizia, any comments?
Yeah, we need to be flexible, considering all the external factors like in most of the cases, the government rules and everything that comes from every country in terms of laws, and also considering our customers, because marketing depends and is based on what our customer appreciates. So if a campaign is not appreciated and all the customers don't click on the campaign, it's not working. So we need to consider day by day what's happening and how the campaign is running, and to be ready to change every detail needed.
Okay, thank you. And maybe just to continue on, next question for you. Are there any new or old marketing technologies or tactics that best support your efforts?
Yeah, I'd like to focus on the modern tactics because this is what I'm trying to implement in the company, because it's something new and not discovered at all in the industry. I mean, these search engine optimization activities. It's quite new in the market because it's often used in e-commerce or in other kind of industry. I think this activity is based on 3 points: content creation, analysis, and strategy. So what I try to identify based on analysis with different tools is identify the market needs. So in digital terms, identify some keywords to be analyzed, and I try to structure specific content that are important and interesting for the target that I'm considering. And what I try is to create white papers, news or landing page that can be interesting for my target. Because I also think that in marketing is really, really important to try to get the best positioning on the Google search page. So when a client is trying to look for a specific supplier, a specific company that builds his plant, it's really important to be in the first results. So I try to do my best to get these goals. It's not always easy because the goal can be reached in the mid-long term. So the results can be measured immediately. So this is the worst point of SEO, but it's really interesting to implement because the results will arrive.
Okay, thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think a very important new technology that we definitely use and benefit a lot from at Anessa is CRMs. So having one central nervous system software where you can manage your email campaigns, manage like your socials and track your KPIs, as well as manage, for example, are customers visiting our website? Are they visiting our website often? And I find that CRMs can provide a lot of the answers to those questions. And although they are sometimes a big pain to maintain and maintain that data clean, I do find that the data enables you to do a lot. In terms of more traditional technologies, we do engage in our website, having it updated and having all of that. But as I mentioned previously, I do think that due to the pandemic, we had a big overhaul of digital technologies, and it has opened a lot of avenues in the industry to explore what can we do with site retargeting, what can we do in terms of like search engine optimization. And I think it has enabled us to explore a lot of very exciting new projects for us.
Yeah, and it's like a time warp, isn't it? The CRMs, how they've evolved. It's incredible. For me, anyway, I think I have a few years on all of the panelists, and to me, I just can't get over how much that technology has evolved and how it has an impact on not only sales but marketing. Andronika, final thoughts on this topic?
Yes, so I've heard already a lot of good answers. Everyone had, let's say, a different approach. For me personally, since we're active worldwide, I like to answer that question always with the target group and with a specific market, because every market is different. So targeting European countries differs, US differs, Asia differs. For me, it always starts with the target groups in the specific markets. And for me, I'm mentioning it so many times, but the target groups, the buyer personas, the profiles will give you all the answers. So I cannot give, let's say, a solution for every customer, for every market, but when I know what my target group thinks, then I really know what to do and how to reach them. That being said, I mean, it can be a mixture of old and new tactics, and it really depends on whom I want to reach. I still see and feel, as I mentioned, trade fairs are must do in RNG. I see that CRM system supports a lot, especially, I mean, we also have to report internally, and all other departments are interested in all the figures and how are we doing, because for them also numbers are quite important. And yeah, also the physical touch points, but also, as you mentioned, let's say opportunities in magazines and TVs also supports, but in my opinion, it really needs to be target group oriented. And also the channels need to be wisely chosen. So for example, when we are doing an RNG video, a case study, then it makes no sense to put them on a, let's say, commercial TV channel. So it should be then the Biogas channel or different ones. And with that, most likely your target groups or your farmers will watch it. They will be at least confronted. And it just differs on the campaign actually also you want to do. Online marketing is still great. You can personalize even more. You have low costs, interactive channels. You have the tracking. You can measure your success and also stay flexible. And I think we all adapted quite a lot, especially through Corona time with all the reports. And we really rethought our strategy. And yeah, so I think it's really necessary for every company to work on the target groups with the buyer personas, and then you will get the answers.
Yeah, very strategic with your approach. Thank you. Let's change gears a bit and talk about content marketing. David, what advice would you give a new entrant in the biogas market looking to communicate their solutions and establish thought leadership through content marketing?
I think you're muted, David.
Yeah. Your mic.
Sorry about that. It just automatically did that. The best advice I'd give is to do your homework. And I mean that in 3 different contexts. First, you have to do your homework on your target markets to mirror Andronika. Make sure you know and understand your client personas. If you do this, it's going to be the basis of your success. If you go in there willy-nilly, it's not going to work. You're not going to know what they need or how you're going to reach them. And that's where you should start. Secondly, you need to do homework on what technology or portals that you're going to use to reach your target markets. The RNG industry, as we've discussed, can be very resistant to change. So you have to work within that framework, see what the potential client is responding to, and change your marketing strategy to match that. And thirdly, and last but not least, research your content. The RNG client is very smart and will see through any thinly sliced content. So you got to make sure your content is right and the rest will follow. So if you did your research on what is going into your content, how it's going to be shown, you're going to hit a home run. So I think if you follow these 3 steps, you will over time gain your potential client's trust and become a thought leader in the industry.
Okay, thank you, David. Missy, any thoughts on content marketing?
Yeah, so for content strategy, my suggestion is don't be afraid to repurpose some of the hard work that you've already achieved. So oftentimes you write an article and then you forget about it and then it goes old a year later. So it's actually really important to make sure that you're constantly updating all of these and making sure that you're not only targeting a keyword for that specific article, for example, but that you're going back into it and making sure that it's relevant. Don't be afraid to keep referencing all your previous content. So backlinking, making sure that you're building up this specific topic, but you're also mentioning something else. Something that I use is called the umbrella cluster method. So I have like a product page with like a landing page, and then I have my cluster articles that go underneath, and I make sure that they all backlink each other. So that way Google, the algorithm, understands that I'm talking about a specific topic and all these landing pages apply. So a bit nerdy on the back end, but all in all, just don't be afraid to repurpose and yeah.
So when you're looking for a few more hours in the week, it's a good idea too, on a practical level, to recycle some things. Good advice. Letizia, any thoughts? content
Yeah,
marketing for new
my
entrants?
advice is don't be afraid to innovate the industry, because in most cases the industries are traditional and they use old approaches. So my advice is to analyze the market, the competitors, define a strategy, of course, based on the buyer personas and the clients, and innovate. So produce new and innovative content and try to describe a technology differently. So not only with a short description or with the text, but maybe try to, of course, use videos, infographics, and something new that maybe can engage the customers more.
Okay, thank you. So, Andronika, your thoughts. Seems to me that new entrants in the space are one of their strategies is to differentiate, and thought leadership can certainly help. But your thoughts on where and how it might be used for new entrants?
Yes, I do also agree with David. To spend time on analyzing your target groups and evaluating your buyer personas, define your vision, mission, and brand values. And also your tone of voice and key messages matters. And work with all departments and receive also their needs and include it, because they have different perspectives of everything. And it's always worth to brainstorm, especially with sales together, because they have the direct customer contact. You will receive the direct insights as well. Yes, update your profiles, etc. Sometimes you just have to try. And my advice is just keep it easy, it's simple. In my opinion, the industry technology is quite complex enough, and always include call to actions. Your customers, whoever, always should be in the mood to contact you. So place call to actions to build relationships and to work together and build a greater R&G industry.
Very nice, thank you. Andrea, if there's any final comments on this topic, you can, and you can also segue, you can also talk on the next question if you'd like, which I can. Do you have any comments on content marketing before we move on?
I do, yeah. My favorite advice I ever got when I was starting out in marketing was by my first boss, which was in a work study in the university. And she told me that marketing is all about empathy and being able to put yourself in the shoes of the people that you're trying to sell to or that you're trying to communicate to. And the beauty of the R&G industry is that my family has a big farming background. So when we're thinking about farmers, I'm easily able to put myself, let's say, in my grandmother's shoes. And I'm like thinking, okay, if she wanted to get a digester, where does she get started? She doesn't really know this information. What information does she want to know? And starting approaching it from the client's perspective and then building it back into your strategy and what you want to do has been a very effective practice, at least on me, on my end. That being said, I used to be the person that started labyrinths from the center up until the exit. So I've always been pretty good at building back things from the result into what that process will look like. And I found that putting myself in the shoes of those people I want to communicate with has really helped me be able to put out content that's more relevant or that people are interested in.
Great advice, thank you. And on to the next question. So, two-part question. One is, does your company work in multiple target markets? We're talking in the context of geographical markets here, although we've been speaking in terms of personas throughout this discussion. So there's another layer on it, but multiple markets. And if so, how do you account for localization within your strategy? And
awesome.
Andrea, kick us off here.
Definitely. So on my end, at Anessa, we do work in multiple markets. We have clients in, I believe, 13 countries worldwide. And localization is a big component of our strategy, making sure that we are updated on policy in our target markets and we're aware of what policy are our clients playing in, and making sure we are updated on that front. I think one component of localization is market research and making sure you're in the know in that sense. But another component is making sure that your customers are interacting with localized content. So translating your content, translating brochures, translating websites, I think is very, very key when you're playing in a couple different fields.
Okay, thank you, Letizia.
Yeah, even in Biogas, we are an international company, so we are used to talk with international partners and clients. So in our case, too, localization is fundamental in our activities. So what is important is trying to getting constantly in contact with our sales department. To have a deeper understanding of the specific market needs, because of course it's important even to decide what to do with communication activities. So even when trying to decide whether participate or not to a specific event, the commercial department is important. So every country has its specific needs, specific rules, and needs a specific marketing strategy.
Okay, thank you. Andronika?
Yes, I do also agree with Letizia, as we are also in different markets. What also helps us is to hire local people. We have also our offices in our most important markets, wherever it is needed. We use the local language in marketing materials where it makes sense. But we also do communicate that we are a diverse team, especially in the employer branding. I think this becomes more and more important. And I think it's also good that everybody feels welcome. And I do believe that our clients appreciate that very much. At least this is what I see. And I mean, for example, in our case for social media, we still use one LinkedIn account. As we do believe it works best. Our usual content is English, but for some postings, we use the local language as our community is diverse and we do great. So for us personally, let's say our company language also internally is like, say, English, but for certain topics, for example, if you have joint accounts, it makes sense to post also something in a different language, because in the end, we are also here in this panel discussion together from several countries, because I mean, the technology, the RNG is there. We are selling it as a manufacturer worldwide. And I think it's also great that the community sees what's going on in this country and this and what works. And I think it's also about updating each other, networking, partnerships across borders, not only within the state.
Well put, thank you. And Missy, any final comments on multiple target markets?
Yeah, so when I did global marketing for the multinational biogas company that I previously came for, I really relied on my sales rep in that region. So they helped me determine what the value proposition should be for that area. They were a big help in making sure that the content I was putting out was relevant, that, you know, if we're working with like converting the leaflet, for example, into a different language, that we're making sure that the message that we want to come across is consistent with the corporate branding that I want to achieve, but also tailored to that specific market. So really acting locally. And then we really focused on case studies and making sure that if I wanted to have more projects in Spain, for example, that I'm creating case studies in Spain, for example. I did really rely on associations. So if we wanted to be in the Italian market, for example, I did work with the Italian Biogas Association in that region. And I also would interview those stakeholders in that area. Some tell me what's going on, like what are the updates that I need to be aware of? How can we help achieve the overall message that us in marketing need to like bring forth in the biogas space? It's especially really like a hot take over here in the States, where there's strong opinions about biogas and RNG. So it's really good that I would work with the RNG Coalition, for example, to make sure that I'm messaging, we're all working together to demonstrate how important RNG is. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And next question, Missy, too. So events and conferences have been a big part of the RNG industry. And historically, have these events provided good returns? And how do you define goals for events like that?
Ooh, the big question. So, you know, there's multiple ways that we approached events. So, you know, it's really hard to capture, as we all know, the ROI for events. And so you do have to place a lot of value in how much events place on brand credibility. So I think from a consumer standpoint, people realize that if you're participating in events and you're putting in a lot of money, that also can demonstrate financial stability in a company. So doing a big balance on that. Like we know every year in the previous company that we were going to attend all these shows, right? And so really making sure that we place a lot of bang for your buck on those events, because it really is hard to capture the ROI. I think Andrea and I had a really interesting conversation previously about making sure that the CRM program you have can capture all of those leads correctly, and making sure that you train and work with your sales team to make sure that they're inputting the leads correctly. So at the end of the year, you can demonstrate that this event created this amount of leads or that it didn't. And that maybe we can allocate that budget towards digital marketing, which is what I specialize in, for example. So
that's great. Thank you. David, thoughts on conferences?
I find conferences can be either hit or miss in relation to your ROI. I think it's a good practice to set goals for what you want to get out of a conference. So at Anessa, we have measures in place that gauge what we want to achieve. And it helps when if you want to switch up conferences to maximize those precious marketing dollars. So we created a conference playbook that outlines all of the goals and tasks for each conference, from marketing to booth setup to post-conference activities. I actually is the one who set it up. So this ties in with a spreadsheet that measures our conference's success. And the two come together and create a perfect mix of preparation and analytics to live by, or die by, I guess. So we've used to switch up even our conference marketing this past year. We've also tried sponsoring events as well, with a variety of outcomes. So you kind of have to gauge what you're looking for at the end of the day for that. So, you know, you keeping an eye on what you're getting for your conference dollars. Some conferences are better at giving you exposure than others. So at the end of the day, conferences are an amazing way to get exposure if you watch where you were going and how much in your return on investment that you're getting out of it.
All right, thank you. Andronika, thoughts on conferences?
So we've heard a lot of approaches. I mean, of course, you have to start with which events and conference really make sense for your business. I mean, events are also, it's also linked to the image. We have mentioned big booth shows the financial stability. But I also do believe, and I think it will become more and more important, is the sustainability aspect. Like putting so much money for a huge booth and decoration, etc. Is it really worth? Can we present ourselves in a more sustainable way without wasting all the money for the event and have still a great outcome? I think this is where we all should thrive, because if you think of all the printing stuff, etc., it's not good for our environment. And we are selling, or as a manufacturer, a sustainable product. So also our communication should be as sustainable as possible. And let's say if I could make a wish, it's that I hope all the event organizers doesn't hear this, but we should try also to create more sustainable physical events. Because I don't see it clear to spend so much money on physical booth setups. Just keeping in mind the environmental aspect. And I think you can also communicate this in your strategy when your company really has the sustainability targets and is transforming their company. And this is the way your booth looks like, then you will communicate this. And I've seen this already at a couple of events, and I'm sure it will also start in the RNG industry.
That's great. Well, thank you. I might add, by the way, Andronika, that I first got to meet your colleagues by unplugging their lights. Our booths were back to back, and I accidentally pulled the plug, and their lights went off at their booth. So they came around to see them accidentally, and they came around, and that's how I first met your team. So, hey, what are you doing? I think your CEO was actually there. So it was an embarrassing moment, but that was Letizia, thoughts on events and conferences?
I think that what Andronika introduced about sustainability is really interesting because this is what I'm trying to implement in the company, because we are participating in the, multiple events during the year. So for example, I'm trying to use the flowers that we put on the booth in my office, for example, or all the printings, all the graphics we have. I try to reuse them in other events or conferences, or in the meeting room in the headquarters. Of course, it's not always easy because all these suppliers need to be to agree with all this reuse of the materials. But what I hope is that in the future will be more implemented within all the organizations. On the other side, I think that these questions was the trickiest because there is a qualitative point of view of the events in terms of brand reputation and awareness that it's not easy to measure. So when justifying all the budgets that you use for the event is not easy. It's always a tricky point. On the other side, what we can measure is, for example, the number of potential clients that we collect during the show. So how do we nurture them, and how many will be transformed into real clients? So this is what I think that we can do to measure the return of the investment in the events.
All right. How are we doing for time? Andrea, do you have some comments here as well?
I think in terms of events, we really beefed up our event strategy for this year, and we definitely learned a lot about events, as David was saying. So I think first thing would be learning which events you want to attend and gain a lot of insight on, because I feel like a big component of returns for events is market research. So what information are you getting? What policy updates are they talking about within the event? Is there like new and exciting policies that we should be aware about? Or I think it's a very good way not only to boost your brand visibility, but also see what else is in the market and see what the hot topics are and get a very good feel around that, especially for target markets. Attending physical events has been just fantastic in terms of market research.
That's great. Thank you, Andrea. So look, thank you very much to our panelists. Extremely insightful, obviously a deep bench, very knowledgeable. Let's open up the floor to some questions from our attendees and viewers, if there's any.
I am waiting for a couple questions to come in, but I do have one question on my front for our wonderful and very experienced panel here. I am wondering, we were talking about KPIs just now, and we have KPIs at Anessa, and I'm sure you all have KPIs, but if you had one metric that would be very important for you to measure, or one set of metrics that would be very important for you to measure, what would those be? And I'll start picking on our digital expert here, Missy.
So my KPIs that I focus on for the website definitely is how we're converting on the website. So whether you're going to use that as the contact form as your conversion, or whether you want to navigate how long a user spends on your web page, for example, and your bounce rate. One thing that I know matters to the C-suite team is how much your audience is growing for social media. So making sure you document your counts in the beginning of the year and you're keeping measure quarterly, because I don't know about you, it's really hard for me to figure out my growth following Twitter and LinkedIn, for example. So I have to be really good at creating reminders to make sure that I can easily document the audience growth, so I don't have to like struggle and scratch my head at the end of the year and try to figure out how we were doing Q2. So another thing that's really important is when I'm making articles, looking at how that content is converting into some type of measurable form. So like Andronika said about a call to action for that article, making sure that it leads to somewhere. So if I want someone to make contact on that specific article, I may create a different contact form than just redirecting them to contact us, for example. So a little bit of like on the back end, thinking about what I want to show at the end of the year and thinking how I can strategize that and incorporate HubSpot contact forms or email blasts into my KPI metrics. I could ramble on and on about it, but I will pass the mic.
Oh. Awesome. Thank you, Missy.
And I think that that term is quite universal now, KPI or key performance indicators. Just some of the relatively new for me, I think within the last 7 or 8 years that I've heard this term. Maybe others, Andronika, on KPIs?
Missy mentioned already, let's say, website performances. I mean, because it's end of the year and we are all preparing the presentations for our teams, how we performed, etc. Just having something in mind in regards of social media or LinkedIn, having a look on our engagement rates. And I do kind of like to collect the presentation with what was good and what was bad, like how should we do it and how should we do it not? Because especially I also receive a lot of pictures from other colleagues when I'm not on site, etc. And then I'm showing them directly. So we had a great performance on this posting. If you compare, for example, when we make the comparison between pictures, so this was, let's say, a much greater performance. So I really like to visualize these things also to, let's say, sales departments or others, and to show them how we perform. Because when I tell also sales like how our engagement rates, well, impression, etc., for them it's a little bit, you know, not always so touchy. But then I like to present all the pictures in a comparison and be like, we have to follow this guideline for next year.
That's a smart idea. Letizia, what about you?
Yeah, just to talk about performance, I want to focus on the newsletter. So another analysis that I think we are all doing in these weeks is to analyze how many subscribers do we have in our software for the email marketing, and analyze how all the subscribers interact with the content that we share. So this is, I think, another important KPI that needs to be considered as an evaluation point.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. Just a quick question. I know for our organization, Corona, COVID, just wreaked havoc on our go-to-marketing strategy, but we had some positive outcomes from that, a silver lining. We were able to pivot in some ways. Curious if there's any best practices that any of you have carried forward from the way you were doing business during the COVID lockdown and afterward.
I mean, we did in the beginning a social media campaign. Did you know about BIOGEST? So we just informed about our core values, what our company stands for, how our business is structured, or just, let's say, more personal things about our company. So this is, for example, what we have done during Corona, like a social media. Did you know that we employ 50% women, 50% male? So it's almost equal, things like that, which let's say kept the business running. I mean, there were no events to post. If we're talking about social media, no events. The online events kind of started. I mean, we didn't really have that before. So in the meantime, for example, this was something we have done.
Letizia, any best practices that you brought forward from lockdown?
Actually, I wasn't in Sevigas during the lockdown, but what I saw from my colleagues, what they done was to demonstrate the support to the local communities. So they did some posts on social media when they went to some organization to donate masks. So this was the main and most important activities that they've done. For the community, with other companies that are based in our city. We didn't organize any webinar or other activities, but I think that this idea was very interesting and engaging for territory.
Okay, thank you. Andrea, any last questions that have come in?
No more questions from this end.
Okay. Well, I want to first of all thank the panelists, all of you. Thank you for taking the time to prepare, join, setting aside our two colleagues here from the European markets for setting aside some of your evening and dinner time for that. I really appreciate it. And to all of you who have attended, again, thank you for attending. Just a reminder, we're going to be recording and updating this, and we'll make the link available to you. And in the new year, we have other topics that we'll be doing webinars on as well as part of the Anessa series on this. So thank you very much. Enjoy the remainder of your day. And until next time, goodbye.